I never thought a simple request to paint my front door navy blue would turn into a legal nightmare. But that's exactly what happened when I crossed paths with Linda Carmichael, the self-proclaimed enforcer of community standards and president of the Brookstone Glen HOA, and arguably the most feared woman in the neighborhood. It all started last spring. I decided to freshen up the front of my home. And before I so much as opened a paint can, I did what any responsible homeowner would do. I checked our HOA guidelines. According to the official Brookstone Glen documents, front doors could be painted in tasteful, subdued colors that complement the home's exterior. There were no specifics, no color charts, no brand swatches, just vague language. I chose a classic navy blue that matched my shutters perfectly and submitted my paint request with color samples attached. 3 days later, I got an email from Linda. The subject line screamed in all caps, "Violation notice, unauthorized color selection." In her message, she claimed my navy blue was too bold and disruptive to the aesthetic harmony of the community. She demanded that I repaint using one of the approved shades, every one of them a slight variation of beige or gray. I politely replied, pointing out that her color demands weren't in the actual rules. That's when she hit me with, "The board has discretionary authority on aesthetic matters. Your request is denied." I've never been someone who backs down from unreasonable authority. So, I formally requested a hearing with the HOA. That's when things started to feel off. The hearing was postponed, then postponed again. Finally, when it did happen, Linda brought what she claimed was an amended bylaw document, stating that bright colors had been prohibited for 5 years. Something wasn't right about the papers. The font changed midway through the document. The page with the color restrictions looked suspiciously newer than the rest. After the hearing, where Linda's hand-picked board members swiftly denied my appeal, I decided to dig deeper. I tracked down the neighborhood's former HOA president, Edward Grant, who had retired to Scottsdale, Arizona 2 years earlier. When I asked him about the color restriction amendment allegedly passed during his term, his reaction was one of genuine confusion. "We never approved any color amendments," he told me flatly. "In fact, we debated it and decided against restrictions because nobody could agree on which colors were acceptable." That was all I needed to hear. I took a trip to the county records office, where all HOA amendments are legally required to be filed. I combed through everything. Sure enough, Linda's amended document didn't exist in the official records. The only covenant on file used the original vague language, tasteful and complimentary. No restrictions, no bans. Armed with this evidence, I went to 2 board members privately. They seemed nervous, unsure. "Well, Linda's very organized," one said, glancing around. "I'm sure she just hasn't submitted the latest amendments yet." Not satisfied, I sent a formal letter to the entire board requesting clarification on the discrepancy. 3 days later, I returned home to a certified letter from the HOA, or rather, from Linda Carmichael herself. Inside was a notice listing multiple violations allegedly committed on my property. I was being fined $900. The so-called violations? Garbage bin was 8 inches from the curb instead of 6. Unauthorized stone border around my flower bed. Excessive holiday decor in April, despite having 0 decorations up at the time. It was retaliation. Clear as day, but I wasn't going to be bullied. I documented everything with photos and submitted a formal request for another hearing. Instead, Linda filed for a legal injunction against me. She claimed I was harassing the board and disrupting HOA operations. Then came the most outrageous part. In her court filings, she submitted affidavits supposedly signed by my next-door neighbors, the Millers, stating I'd been aggressive, non-compliant, and verbally abusive. One problem, the Millers had been in Europe for 3 weeks. There was no way they could have signed anything on the dates shown. I called them immediately. They were furious. Our names were forged. Mrs. Miller said, stunned, we weren't even in the country. That was the final straw. I contacted a lawyer who specializes in HOA litigation. Her face darkened the moment she saw the documents. "This isn't just abuse of power," she told me. "This is criminal. Falsifying legal documents and forging signatures? That's a felony. We're going to court." We filed a counterclaim against both the HOA and Linda Carmichael personally, submitting all the evidence I had, the falsified documents, the forged signatures, and the fake bylaw amendment. Our case landed before Judge Thomas Baylor, known locally for his no-nonsense approach to neighborhood disputes. He scheduled an emergency hearing to address the forgery allegations before even touching the injunction. The morning of the hearing, my nerves were shot. I entered the courtroom and saw Linda seated across the aisle, poised, confident, dressed in a pristine beige suit. Her attorney, a slick guy who looked like he billed by the syllable, sat beside her, flipping through papers. When Judge Baylor arrived, Linda's lawyer spoke first. He painted me as a rogue homeowner with a grudge against authority, claiming I was stirring unrest and failing to follow proper process. He waved the amended bylaws like a golden ticket. Then it was our turn. My lawyer calmly laid everything out: the official county records, the statement from former President Edward Grant, and the piece de resistance, an affidavit from the Millers confirming their absence during the dates on the forged affidavits. They also included their actual signatures from previous HOA documents, which looked nothing like the ones Linda had submitted. Judge Baylor's face grew stern as he flipped through the evidence. "These signatures don't match the Millers' known signatures," he said, peering over his glasses. Then he turned directly to Linda. "Miss Carmichael, did you personally witness the Millers sign these affidavits?" Linda cleared her throat, the first crack in her previously confident armor. "I received them by email, Your Honor. I printed them for the court." "Let's see the emails," the judge replied. She froze. Her attorney leaned over and whispered furiously. She fumbled with her phone and muttered, "I can't seem to find them." Judge Baylor was not amused. "And the so-called HOA amendments?" He continued, lifting the obviously doctored page. "These are not filed with the county, yet you're enforcing them." Linda offered a stammering explanation about backlogs and administrative delays. The judge cut her off. "This court takes forgery very seriously, Miss Carmichael. I'm ordering a forensic document analysis of all materials submitted." Linda's face turned ghost white. Her lawyer requested a recess. When we returned 30 minutes later, she was visibly shaken, whispering to her attorney like a drowning person clinging to a life raft. The forensic expert needed just a few minutes to confirm what we already knew. The paper stock didn't match, the ink was too new, and the Millers' signatures had been digitally lifted from prior forms and pasted into a new document. That was it. Judge Baylor looked furious. "Miss Carmichael, stand up," he ordered. She rose slowly, eyes darting, clearly looking for an escape. "Based on the evidence presented, I'm dismissing the injunction against the defendant. Furthermore, I'm referring this matter to the district attorney's office for criminal investigation, document fraud, forgery, and perjury." Then he turned to the bailiff. "Take Miss Carmichael into custody." The entire courtroom gasped. Linda froze as the bailiff approached, her voice rising to that familiar shrill I'd heard in many HOA meetings. "This is absurd," she yelled. "I am the president of Brookstone Glen. You can't treat me like a criminal." The judge didn't flinch. "The law applies equally to everyone, Miss Carmichael, regardless of your HOA title." As the bailiff cuffed her, she looked back at me, mascara streaked down her cheeks, her composure completely gone. "This isn't over," she spat. "I built this community. I gave everything to it." The judge had already moved on. "Sir," he said, turning to me, "you're free to paint your front door any color you like, according to the actual HOA documents. And I recommend the remaining board members schedule an emergency vote to replace their leadership." The gavel came down. Her bail was set at $25,000. Her passport was revoked pending trial. And just like that, the nightmare ended. As I walked out of the courtroom, the weight I'd carried for months lifted off my shoulders. The abuse, the lies, the fake violations, it was finally over. Linda Carmichael may have thought she was above the law, but in the end, justice spoke louder than intimidation. And I finally painted my front door the exact shade of navy blue I wanted, without permission and without fear.